Hello, dear listener, and welcome to the Symposium podcast. My name is Samir, friends know me as Sam, and I am the host of the show. A symposium was the second part of a banquet in ancient Greece, where the host and guests would drink and discuss topics of common interest. That's what the Symposium podcast is, a collection of conversations between me and a guest from all walks of life in front of a drink. The aim of the podcast is to inspire, entertain, and in general, facilitate the free flow of ideas. So grab yourself a drink as well, and wish you a happy listening. My conversation today is with Sahasrajit Ramesh, and like he says in the podcast, he's known as Jeet. He's one of my friends, a really passionate human being with an interesting story that I thought would be a shame not to share with everyone. Since I heard it the first time, I found it very, very inspiring and also very particular. Just to give you some details, Jeet was following an academic career, was going to work as an engineer after his university years, but decided to leave everything behind to go for a pilgrimage in India, and the rest is history. I will not spoil anymore because it's definitely worth it to hear it directly from him. So again, without further ado, let's go to the interview with Jeet, and I wish you a happy listening. Beautiful. Hey.
All right.
Hello, brother.
Hey, man.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks.
All good?
All good. Thanks for having me on this show, man.
Oh, no worries. Thank you for coming. While you were having your moment, I was just experimenting with the stuff that I have here, and the technology is incredible.
Yeah, man. I've never heard my voice so clearly.
Yes, yeah, it makes such a huge difference. So
I think it's gonna make everything we say sound super smart.
so I noticed a lot of things since I started this podcast,
Yeah.
and now it's been a few episodes. But if you compare it to the first one, it's already a huge difference, and it's a learning curve. And the first time that I recorded, when I finished and I listened to myself again, I realized how many likes I was putting in my sentences.
Mm.
The ratio was really high. And so after realizing that, I just promised myself that I would be careful not to do it again. And I just started noticing how many likes people use in their sentences. Because it's so weird that when you talk naturally, when you talk in your everyday life, you're not listening 100% to what you're saying because you're free flowing. So all the likes, all the so the good thing about having this setup is that the volume is really loud and you can hear yourself clearly. And probably there is like a very, very small delay. That's why you can hear yourself so clearly. And you just realize all the things that you say.
Saying it makes it easier to listen to yourself.
I think it does. Yeah. It makes you more grounded. And yeah, I really like it. Having a podcast, a studio and a setup, a professional one makes a huge difference.
Yeah. I've never had it that when I speak, I can hear my own voice in the headphones live. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
Very
yeah,
cool.
It is. Technology
Yeah.
it is pretty cool. We tend to complain about it, and it's for sure, it's like every tool can be used properly and can enhance your life, or it can be a burden. So yeah. So how are you doing? Of course, we are friends, so I know everything that's happening in your life. And for someone that's tuning in right now, they probably don't know who you are. And so if you could give like a brief introduction, and yeah.
Sure. So my name is Sahasrajit, but most people call me Jeet. I was born in India, in the south of India, in Chennai, but I moved to Italy when I was 3 years old with my parents, and I grew up there. I did school there, and then I went to the UK to study. I studied material science at the University of Oxford, and spent a year also in the States doing some research. So I guess I started off my life very academically focused. School was very important to me and to my family as well. And I put most of my energy into that. And I enjoyed it. But after a while, I kind of felt that something was missing. Something wasn't quite right. I didn't want to keep going down that route of pouring my life into academic pursuits. It wasn't really fulfilling me. So after seeing a bit what the world of research was like, decided that I wanted to change. Straight out of university, I had applied for some jobs and I had some job offers and I was trying to decide what to do. And a couple of them were in science and one of them was just quite different, just randomly kind of happened. The opportunity came along. Just decided to reach out to somebody and ended up being an interview and a job offer. And this was to be a energy economics analyst in a company called Aurora Energy Research. So what they do is they try to predict the energy market, the energy industry many years into the future. And so they help banks and investors and governments make investment and policy decisions through the climate transition. So I wanted to do that because I wanted to learn more about climate change from I guess what I was really looking for was like, okay, what's the lever that actually, if I put my energy into it, can actually create a change in this society and a positive change for mankind. And so I thought that working on climate change, this is quite an urgent and massive problem. I wanted to learn more about that industry. So I did that for a couple of years. But then various things happened in my personal life and COVID also happened. And it became clear to me that I didn't want to continue in that role or in that industry. What was very clear to me is that I didn't want to be employed anymore. It was, I don't know, I started viewing it, maybe it was a bit extreme. It might sound a bit extreme to some people, but I felt like it was a subtle form of slavery of my time, that I'm signing a contract and these people are...
Whoa.
I don't know. I think it's just, we accept it because it's just a normal thing and we all need money in this society. But to sign away your time to somebody else and they can control what time you show up and what time you leave. And, also, I think what really I remember clearly is when I kind of looked at it differently, I remember feeling like very offended. Like, hold on, I have to ask for permission to take time off. Like, as a human being on this planet, I need to ask for permission to take time for myself. There's something wrong with that. And I think because COVID kind of put me in a bubble where I was reflecting a lot more, I started to think my thoughts were less influenced by the movement of the crowd or what most people are thinking, and started to look at things more for myself, which I think the pandemic really provided that opportunity to a lot of people. And I've met a lot of people that changed their lives a lot throughout that. So yeah, then it's not a very brief answer to your question.
No, we have time. So
yeah, just to give some context. But
I mean, probably I asked you the hardest question there is. Who are you? So it makes sense that you're taking time to answer. So please keep going.
All right. Yeah.
So COVID happened. You start your path. That was the traditional academic path that gets suggested by family and friends and everyone around you. And it's a pretty impressive one because it sounds like the ideal path that you would like to have. You go through school, then when you finish, you go to a prestigious university in Oxford. You also have an experience in another country, in another environment, still in the academic field. That was the MIT, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And then you go for the kind of useful and at the same time rewarding, because it's useful type of job in energy and trying to better the planet, etc. But still, you felt not content. So on the surface, it looks like everything is perfect.
Yeah.
But underneath the surface, it was not. Something was not clicking.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened. You had more time to think about your stuff. Some stuff happened in your life. And
wow, that's an amazing summary, man. Beautiful.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I left that job, and I feel was a big shifting point of the trajectory of my life, because up until that point, I had always made decisions aligned with what was, as you use the word, prestigious. And subconsciously, that was a very important thing to me, even though I would never have thought of myself as a person that cared much about prestige or status. I think we all have that kind of subconscious drive of our egos to show off, or to kind of constantly calculating socially our position or what relations are. I mean, most people chasing after money or wealth is really for status. And yeah, I left without any plan. And I deliberately left without any plan. When I told my friends or my family that I really feel like leaving this job, at first they were like, no, why? It's such a good job. Like, many people would kill to be in your position. And, you've had all this trajectory. Like, at first it was that. And I told them, okay, but it's not really fulfilling me. So, it might be prestigious, but I'm getting very tired of prestige. Like, I think that's an important thing that I understood, was that because I was exposed to sort of quote high status achievements that kind of impressed the random people that that you don't really actually care about, but like the
Social circle.
social circles, or parents of other people, or like just people in general. Um, like I'd heard many times that, oh, like you must be very smart, or like wow, all these things, but it just felt very empty. Like it felt very, in the beginning it was slightly gratifying, but then you kind of become psychologically reliant or dependent on that kind of affirmation or validation. Even though I never actually wanted to do high status things or wanted to be the best or anything like that, I just wanted to do my best, because I got used to that kind of being like that kind of reputation or that kind of perception from other people. And it was very poisonous, I feel. I felt like I was shackled to prestige. Like it actually felt like I've done all these things. Basically, why did I do all of this? In my mind, in my heart, it was like, okay, I did school, I did university, I worked hard. Why? For freedom. So that I could have the freedom to live a life that makes me happy, a life that I want to live. But it felt like I was actually so tied psychologically. It felt so scary to lose this prestige that I was actually chained to a very narrow path that I can only keep doing prestigious things. I have to like maintain this image, you know? And that felt very suffocating. So I think on some level, I was really looking to like implode my own life. And I saw the trajectory where it was going. I was like, no, thank you. Because I could see people along this path, people I was working with, or people my professors or whatever it is. And I was just looking at their lives, and I was trying to see, are these people happy? Like, what are they doing? What does their life look like? And I was just like, okay, some of them are very much not happy. Some of them are happy. A lot of it is down to your personal attitude. But I don't think that kind of life is for me. So I kind of made the decision for myself, really like my own joy rather than my level of impressiveness. And yeah, so my parents or friends, they were like, okay, find another job though. Before, when you leave this one, at least you'll know what you're going to do next. And this I found I could understand, but it like infuriated me, because it was again like this kind of weaselly doubt of like the social prestige and the social kind of influences working its way into my mind and heart. I had to wrestle with that a lot. So, and yeah, it just kind of felt like, why? Like, why actually do I have to have a plan? Or why actually do I have to know what I'm doing next before I leave this thing? I feel like I need time to actually reconnect with myself, relearn myself, maybe for the first time, properly learn myself, who I am, what I like, not just what I'm good at, and, start from there. And nobody really supported the decision. And that was actually very beautiful, because it was the first decision I made in my life where, even though everybody was kind of like, what are you doing, man? This seems kind of stupid. I was like, no, I have to do it. And that was the first time I felt really in my gut I was making a decision for myself. So that kind of, and what followed really shifted my life. So what followed?
Yes. That was going to be my next question. So,
Yeah.
but it's nice to hear that your family, they still didn't understand, and your friends, they said, "What are you doing?" Probably they said that you're crazy because you're leaving that kind of path. But at the same time, they were still kind of supportive, and at least they were giving you suggestions, like find another job at least. But you said, no, I don't want to find another job because I get your point of view. You're saying, what's the point from shifting from one slavery, quotation mark, to another slavery? You know, like you were trying to go for something different where you could
Mm.
just explore and explore yourself, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah. And yeah, I definitely can't complain. Like, I did not receive massive opposition from my family or friends or anything like that. And in that sense, I feel I was lucky and very blessed. But yeah, I guess
I would say that most people would find it very scary because you always know what's coming next, You know that today is Monday, I'll do my work. Tomorrow I have to go to the office or whatever employment I have. Same for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, then Saturday, Sunday. I have time to recharge, do my own things, my own hobbies, etc. And on and on and on. Then you have, New Year where you have a holiday, another one in summer. So it's you kind of getting a structure makes you be feel more safe.
yeah.
But when you lose that structure, it's very traumatizing, I would say. So how did you live through that phase, and how did you decide what to do next if you didn't have a predetermined path in front of you?
I think to answer this question, I just want to take a step back and just make a distinction about what you said is very true, that a lot of people, I mean, we all on some level seek security. We really crave that sort of comfort that it brings, that like, okay, I know what's up. I know what's going to happen in the short-term future, long-term future. Different people have different kind of levels of how much they plan for security, but on some level, we're always seeking security. But at the same time, there's a deeper part of us that is seeking exactly the opposite, is seeking freedom, is seeking spontaneity, is seeking excitement, adventure, and is seeking just the joy of abandon. I mean, abandon, like, I think we've all experienced at least one moment in our lives where we just throw everything to the wind, forget about everything, and just dive into whatever that situation is that presents itself. I feel like those two feelings are so different. When you actually see how does it feel in my heart or in my body to lean into one of those things. I mean, 99% of the time, people lean into the comfort, to the security, because that's really what the mind is seeking. Our thoughts, our sense of our constructed psychological selves, like a concept of me as a person, which you can go into more later. But the mind is always trying to seeking to define things, to put things into its little boxes, to create some kind of logic or narrative or story or structure. And while this can be a very useful tool to do and create many beautiful things in the world, it's become a crutch rather than a tool.
Mm-hmm. But it sounds like what you're saying now is very different from what the Sahasrajit that was leaving that path would have been thinking or feeling.
Yeah.
It sounds like a realization that you made afterwards,
Yeah.
after deciding to leave that path.
Definitely.
Because like you're talking, that it doesn't sound like the kind of person that we were talking about, that you're just stuck, that
Yeah.
you were feeling that you were not living your true life and you decided to set that aside. So what led you to start thinking this way, or experiencing life this way, or having this point of view?
I think at that point, the reason I started explaining this was that at that point I had some of these concepts that I just spoke about intellectually in my head. So I'd read some sort of spiritual classic books like The Power of Now, The Untethered Soul, and the surrender experiment, which I really recommend to everybody. Very life-changing for me. And they kind of made me have these sort of realizations. The biggest realization is just that there really is nothing else except this that we're experiencing now. The future and the past are not real. They might feel real, but that's only because we believe our thoughts so much and our attention is so stuck into our thinking so much that that thought world, we feel it as real. And actually, that's not life. Life is now. And so those kind of, that realization, I had got glimpses of that reading books and these books that I was talking about. And those really informed and influenced a lot also my thinking and my decision to leave and to seek something. Because I knew, I had tasted there is something more real than this kind of life of like, go to work, 9 to 5, save money, buy a house, just the story. It just felt so dead because it just didn't speak to my inner being. It just felt like a totally mental thing that also was not even my story. It didn't even have a juice of being like my own story. So yeah, at that time, it was just a lot of frustration, to be honest. That's really what fueled me, because it just became intolerable to continue. And it became this thing of like, do I respect myself to have the courage to leave this thing? Or am I just gonna do the comfortable, safe feeling thing? And that it just became black and white at a certain point. And then I just made the choice. I made the plunge. But it was very scary, actually. It was very scary. I remember. It just felt like my mind could not handle that idea of like, you're gonna leave all this for what, But I'm very glad that I did.
It's interesting because it's very similar to my own story. When you're telling yours, I can see myself in your thought process and the place you were in life and how you felt stuck, because it was kind of similar to myself as well. Very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about yours.
Yes. So me as well. I went through the predetermined path, and we're talking about it like this, like it's something negative, but it's not actually. It's a very valid path, because like you learn a trade, or like you learn to do something. You get your information from school, and then you go to apply those informations to just build a life, But like you were saying, it just feels like, is this everything? Isn't there something else?
Yeah, is this it? Like...
This is great, it's good, but again, like you said, why? And I just didn't feel like I was fulfilled, because I went to university, I studied economics. And after that, I just got a job as an insurance broker. And myself as well, I left that job. I cannot say that I left it myself. I got fired. It's a really fun story how I got fired, maybe for another time. And me as well, I found myself without a plan. And I just had to look inside of me and actually ask myself, what do you want? Because for my whole life, I never asked myself, what do I want? It feels like a cascade effect. You're just going with the flow. Of course, you have to go to elementary school because you're not deciding. It's your parents deciding for you. Same for middle school in Italy, because we have primary school and then middle school. And then high school, you actually make the first decision. You can decide which one you want to go to. And me personally, I chose my high school just because some of my friends were going to it, because I didn't want to go to a new school and just, make new friends, even if I did. And it was actually a great time. I enjoyed my high school time. I probably didn't enjoy all of the curricula, because some of it, anyway. And again, you get to take your second choice when you have to decide what to do next. You can go out directly to work, or you can decide to go to university. even if that one as well doesn't feel that I made the decision because it was an obvious thing that I had to go to university. So I went through all that path, but when I was at the end of it, I felt like I was not doing something that spoke to me, you know? And it is scary, like you said. So I had to ask myself, and I just realized that if I kept going on that path, like the thing that made me go over that fear and take the next steps and decide what to do, is that I just imagined myself going through that path down the line in 20 years, 30 years, or 40 years. Would I like the place where I will be? And I thought, not really. I don't think I would like myself there. You know, probably I would have money, a house, and a stable job. And I just didn't like my future projection following that path. So I just decided to abandon it and go for something else. And so I decided to move to London, to the UK, because I wanted to work as a director, movie director, and that was probably the most strategic decision. I sat and I decided this is what I want to be in the future. What are the most strategic steps that I have to take to get there eventually one day? So I decided to move to London because it's one of the biggest hubs in Europe when it comes to filmography, and it's also very close. And being a European at the time, I could just move with no problems. I would get the permit to stay straight away. So I just jumped.
You jumped across
Exactly.
the sea.
Yeah. So how was your?
That must have been. I was thinking about this the other day, actually, about your move here. It must have been quite scary to go completely into the unknown, into like some place where you don't know anybody. Especially London, when you don't know anybody, can be quite an intimidating place. And also a place where the language is different, the culture is different.
That's a big one.
Everything is different.
Mm-hmm.
And really kind of the moves that I've made in my life, there's always been, like geographically, there's generally been at least somebody that I know, or like when I came to the UK, for example, for university, that was like in a structured kind of ecosystem place. I wasn't just thrown into the wild. So how was that for you?
It was actually not scary, not because I'm brave, or it's just because I didn't think this is where I need to go. I'll just go, you know?
Amazing.
Because if you start thinking, or it's not that it was just natural, I would say. Or I just took my decision. I was like, this is not working for me. What could work for me? Maybe this one. It was maybe not even like this one, but this is like the best solution that I can come up with. Just looking inside myself, and talking to myself and listening to myself.
Yeah,
this might work. Let's go for it, you know? Because if you start thinking everything is a wrong idea.
Yeah, that's so true.
And everything is problematic. Like you said, if you start thinking, I'm moving to a new country, I know nothing about it. They're speaking another language, so I don't have the full vocabulary. They have different accents, so probably I will not understand some people. They use a different currency.
Yeah, there's too many things then, you know.
Yes. So you just get lost into this ocean of
the thought
doubts.
World, man. Yeah, that's the thing. You think like your mind, your thoughts is basically, for most people, it's their best friend. Especially more mentally inclined people, or people who tend to overthink decisions or analyze and pros and cons and this and that. And, you know, there's analysis paralysis is a term.
Yeah, it is.
But another term that I feel is more to the point. Can we swear on the podcast?
Fuck yeah.
Badass.
Yes, worst host that ever existed.
Yeah, there's another term that my mentor actually introduced to me. Mind fucking. And this is what most of our thoughts are. It's just mind fucking. Is you just get so wrapped up into your thoughts, you're not even aware of what's going on around you anymore, not even aware of like your own breath or anything in the present. You're just totally lost in this fiction, which is either a vision of like a memory, or it's like about the future, and there's thoughts there, and all sorts of emotions can be there in mind fucking. Predominantly it's negative, at least for me, because I find that basically whatever the mind, or let's put it like the psychological mind or the ego, whatever it wants, whatever it can use to hook your attention, it will use that. So fear is like a really big one. So for people who tend to be like anxious or have a lot of anxious thinking, is basically they're getting hooked by the fear because they just keep believing, and they're into that fear, trusting that fear, and going into their minds. And they think that somehow in their minds they'll find some solution, or that they need to like address all of these thoughts and all of these issues and answer all of these questions. That's the only way things are going to be okay and they're going to be able to move forward. But it's like 180 degrees the opposite. That really what one needs to do in that situation is to just say fuck it and just do something, like an action or anything.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Nice.
So yeah, we were saying that you were feeling stuck and you didn't have a road ahead,
Yeah.
and you left the road that society kind of provides you,
Yeah.
a preset map. So
Mm.
you had to chart your own map. How did you go with that?
So at that point in my life, I had just read this book called The Surrender Experiment,
Mm-hmm.
where this guy, his name is Michael Singer, and he, through sort of meditating and looking within and observing his thoughts, he started to realize this thing that we were talking about a bit about, how insane the psychological mind is when you just don't watch it and you just go with it. And so he decided, I think it's better if I don't let this thing influence my life at all, and I just don't try to control my life anymore. I'm going to surrender. Surrender, when people hear that word, it might mean different things. It might trigger different sort of associations. But this is surrendering your desire or need to control things out of a greed or a fear, and just seeing what happens on its own accord. And I had felt this a bit, but not that much at this point in my life. But when you kind of step back into the space of just watching and really not trying to impose anything onto life, you start to actually see the movements of life with more clarity. And there's a certain flow that happens. There's a certain direction that things want to go, that they need to go. It's like the universe is dancing, and you can see that dance unfold, and you can participate in that dance. But rather than trying to control it, you just kind of, it's one step at a time, and you're just there to enjoy it. So I was trying to live like that. So that's why I didn't want to plan. So I just wanted to see what happens, just go with the flow, and just kind of, yeah, I just had this sort of faith. Once I made the decision, I felt so joyful and so kind of elated and thankful to myself for making that decision, and to life for making it possible. Like from that point, I started having a bit of faith. Like I don't know where it came from, but I just kind of felt this sort of intuition that I'd never really connected to much before, where it was just like, yeah, something is going to happen. And at that point, there was a man who's now a friend of mine, Benjamin, who was a client at when I was being a consultant in the energy company. And we actually really hit it off, and we had a really genuine connection. And this was the first kind of working professional that I felt that kind of level of connection with. And it just kind of opened my eyes. I was like, huh, I just took this leap of faith for myself. And then I meet this guy and I connect with this guy with no expectation that it's going to be like, I just asked him for a 15-minute chat to chat about his career a bit,
So after you left the job, you remembered him
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
asked him if you guys could have a chat.
No, this was while I was still in the job.
Okay.
And when we connected. But after I left, he actually got in touch with me, and well, he wanted to hire me actually for a job, or was interested in kind of doing that kind of thing. But I'd made it clear to him in our conversations before that I'm leaving this job because I want to experiment with self-employment and freelance or something like that, you know? So we actually ended up working out a freelance consulting kind of gig where I was doing some modeling for them, some financial modeling. I was using a bit my skills from the previous job, but also had to learn some new stuff. And yeah, that was for about a year. I did that after like a 3-month break. I was in London for 3 months. So at the time I was working in that job. I was in Oxford still. After university, I stayed there, and I just wanted to change. I wanted to join my friends in London, Kiro, who's here. And yeah, it just felt like a big adventure to me, new city, and there's so many cool things happening, so many cool people. I just wanted to experiment, have fun. So I was doing like a lot of jujitsu at that time. I actually even auditioned to be a model one day, which turned out to be a scam.
It's so funny. Happened to me as well.
No way.
Yes.
Oh my
Such
god.
a huge scam.
Oh
my
my
god. The time that I got there, I was like, this is so weird.
Yeah.
But it was fun.
It was a fun day. I'm glad I did
was,
it. Like,
yeah.
you know, it was a fun experience. But yeah, then I started working on this project, this freelance sound project. And yeah, I didn't really find it fulfilling in itself, but I felt like it allowed me what I needed, which was free time, because I would only work a certain number of days a week, and I would work very productively for like a few hours, so I have rest of the time free. So it allowed me time to reflect, but also at that time I was studying psychotherapy. So I was doing a part-time course to become a psychotherapist because I'd gotten very interested into awareness, mental health, well-being, these kind of things, like what people can do to empower themselves to not be like trampled and overwhelmed by their own feelings and emotions, right? So yeah, that period, it was definitely a level up from before. So I had way more freedom. There was also a very beautiful relationship in my life at the time, but still something was missing. So yeah, I just kind of like a lot was changing within, and I didn't really know what was going on. And it was like my view of life and myself and my consciousness was kind of going through shifts, and it's still going through shifts, but in that shifting time, it can be kind of confusing. But basically, after a year of doing that, I left everything. So
For the second time.
For the second time. Yeah. And I left everything, and I left London, and I went to India, which is actually kind of what I wanted to do, or I was hoping to do, when I left the job 1 year ago. But there was a really bad wave of COVID in India during that summer. So I decided to stay in London. And so I guess that whole year, probably one of the things that was preventing me from making the most of it or fully enjoying it is I just had this feeling like I needed to go to India and to really do some deep self-exploration. And so I did that. And this was in, I think, 2022 in the summer. I went to India. And then, man, yeah, that was another big shifting point. Then, yeah, nothing was the same after that, I feel.
Why did you decide to go to India? Is it because of your heritage, because it's where you're coming from, or by reading the books that you told me about, you got inspired, or how did that happen?
I think it's a combination of both. I think, but the main reason was the spiritual reason, which is that, you know, these books are, you know, I wanted to know the truth with a capital T. Like, what's this life about? How can we live joyfully? Well, really, the more honest question is, how can I live joyfully? Because otherwise, you know, I feel like if you actually don't know how to be joyful within yourself, life really sucks. Like, it doesn't matter how rich or poor you are. It just sucks if you don't have that basic experiential, intuitive understanding of life. And yeah, so what was I saying?
You were saying that life sucks if you're not pointing to that truth with the capital T.
Yeah.
So you were trying to find something that's actually fulfilling, because what you tried so far was great, was good, gave you
Yeah.
something, but it was still not the thing.
Yeah.
So you decided to go to India.
So then, yes, I decided to go to India. And I'd just like to clarify, because as soon as that left my mouth, I felt kind of bad to say life sucks. It's not life that sucks. It's we make it suck because we like impose so much negativity onto it. And anyway, I won't get lost into that. I'll continue with the story. Yeah. I keep taking off, man.
No, it's fine. It's completely fine.
Yeah, so I went to India, and it was, again, just kind of intuitive decision. I didn't really know what was going to happen when I was there, but just before that, I started some quite intense meditation and yoga processes from the Isha Foundation, which is the foundation of Sadhguru, who's a very kind of prominent and popular guru from India, who's done a lot of amazing social work and has activated life for many, many people. So I'm very grateful for all that he has offered and the impact he's had on my life. So I started those practices about maybe a couple of months before I went to India. And I didn't necessarily feel such a shift in doing those practices. It took time, but I think it prepared my system, prepared my nervous system for what I was about to experience in India, which is just beyond. Like, I went first to this city called Tiruvannamalai, which is in the south of India. And that is where the ashram of Ramana Maharshi is. So Ramana Maharshi he's a sage who died in like the 50s. And long story short, I went up the mountain to a cave where he meditated. And it's looked after by the ashram and stuff. You know, many people go. But sitting in that cave, I experienced for the first time an electricity in my body that I could not explain. I was just sitting in a cave, and it's like if I tuned myself, I don't know what other word to use, but I kind of tuned myself to a sort of different space within myself. Suddenly it would just fill my body, and like my whole body went rigid and like kind of shaking and stuff. It was so intense, and it was like a delicious sensation. It was phenomenal, and it felt so alive. And in that moment, I think probably because of the practices that I was doing, I was able to just feel that and not try to understand it mentally, because that would have just cut that experience. But when I walked out of that cave and I looked out down the mountain and stuff, I felt so at ease and so so light. Like I'd never felt anything like that before. And I was like, wow. And so that, for me, then after that, it kind of really expanded my horizons of understanding from mainly like the logical and the scientific into the mystical. Because in that time, I felt that man's presence. He's been dead for 70 years, but I felt his energy, you know? And since then, many other experiences like that of feeling the energy and presence of these sort of enlightened masters, that doesn't make any sense to the logical mind. Many people hearing this might now think that I'm crazy, but it's as real as it gets, man. I'll tell you, it's more real than whatever thoughts that one has about science, because those are just thoughts. But this is a live, real. You can't deny it. Like when you look at the sun, you know you're seeing the sun, you're experiencing it. You look at a flower, you know you're experiencing that flower, and you experience something like this, and you're like, wow. And I think what that did to me was it allowed me, you know, a lot of skeptics, scientific people, which, you know, I used to be one of those people. they use this concept called the suspension of disbelief, where the suspension, like they say, in order to kind of make any religion make sense or any kind of idea of God make sense, you have to suspend disbelief and just kind of believe into some story or believe into some assumption that then makes it all that makes the story make sense. And so if you don't believe in that assumption, it all falls down. And that is a fair argument when you're talking about idea-based religions or religious ideologies. But the reality of life, of God as an experience, what you need is not a suspension of disbelief, but a suspension of belief. You feel me?
Kinda.
It's like we believe things, we believe concepts, and I realize I've taken off again.
No,
I'll
it's
keep
not.
going.
No,
I need to finish this
No,
point.
I get it.
Yeah, we believe into.
You step into a realm
Yeah.
where what you used to believe before,
Yeah,
it was not the whole thing.
it was not the whole thing, and it's also you can only really experience that realm, or the kind of you can call more expanded states of consciousness, the more blissful states of experience, when you let go of belief, your need to hold on to any concepts or thoughts. Like in that moment, it's like your mind is not there. Your mind is totally silent, and you're just there with the experience. Like the way a baby is. A baby is not able to form beliefs, not able to form thoughts. But it's like you return to that state. You have the ability to form thoughts, but you suspend the thoughts and the beliefs, and then you really experience life because your attention can actually be with this moment rather than in the thoughts. So anyway, this is a super slow story of introduction. But,
No, go for it. It's not at all.
Yeah.
I'm following. So
Good. So that was that experience in the cave. And then after that, I spent 2 months in the Isha Yoga Center, which is Sadhguru's ashram. And that was a very transformative time, not in the same way as the cave, which was a very kind of intense peak experience. This was more every day, the discipline, waking up at 4:30 in the morning, doing like 2, 3, 4, 5 hours of yoga or meditation a day, doing a lot of physically intense volunteer work, eating very healthy, and all that kind of stuff. I was always tired or in pain or on the verge of sleeping for 2 months, but I felt very joyful. So that was a really big takeaway for me. So I was like, like, there's a lot to complain about, but I don't want to complain. Like, this is great. Like, I just feel I'm just willing to do it, and I'm just willing to engage with it. So even if it's tough, even if it's painful, uncomfortable, that discomfort doesn't matter because I chose to do it and I chose to face it. And that choice to face an unpleasant experience, I think that's the most powerful choice that we can make. And I had not really found that button in myself until that period in the ashram. So that was amazing. While I was there for 2 months, and I wanted to stay for longer to do an advanced program that they were putting on in December. But I just had this feeling, again, this kind of gut feeling, and that I should go to the north and see the north a bit during my time in India. And because this ashram is in the south as well. And I didn't really know how or what, but I just had this kind of vague sensation that there was somebody I needed to meet there. And I thought, okay, maybe that's bullshit, but let's just go and see,
suspension of belief.
Suspension of belief, yeah.
Or disbelief.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think I just wanted to see how magical can this get, Let's find out. So I went to the north with a friend who I had met in the ashram. And we went on a holiday, basically, to a place called Rishikesh. So Rishikesh is in the foothills of the Himalayas in India. It's beautiful. Like the Himalayas, like I love mountains. The Himalayas are like phenomenal mountains. They have such an energy and they're so vast, especially when you go deep into those mountains. There's such a silence because for kilometers in every direction, it's just mountains, mountains, mountains. There's no cities, no nothing. So, yeah, I went to that place. We kind of were in a hostel for a couple of days, just going around doing some sightseeing, seeing some waterfalls and whatever it is. And then through some serendipitous turn of events, we got somehow funneled into another hotel by like some guy that we met who said, "This is a good hotel, come stay here." I was like, cool, okay. And in that hotel, we left our bags and then we were going to go to do some sightseeing. And just on the way down the stairs, there was on the first floor of that hotel a cafe that they had as well. And I just saw this man sitting there in the cafe. It was all like floor seating, which is one thing I really like about Indian cafes, like low tables and they just have cushions on the floor and you kind of sit cross-legged. And he was just sat there. His eyes were closed, long gray beard, turban. And there's something about him that just I felt was very interesting and just kind of stopped me literally in my tracks. And my friend was like, "What's going on?" And he was like, "Oh, that guy is," I didn't know what to say, to be honest. But he was like, "Come on, let's go." I was like, "Okay." I left. Came back in the evening. He was still there. So I was like, "Okay, now I'm definitely going to talk to him." So I went up to him. I sat down next to him with my friend. And I actually had 2 ice creams with me because I was very hungry. I ate one of the ice creams and I was like really full. I was like, damn, I'm not going to be able to eat this other ice cream. So I just looked at this guy and I was like, "Excuse me." He's like, "Yes. Would you like this ice cream?" And he just looked at me and looked at me in the eyes and he was like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to eat it. I'm full. He was like, "Oh, nice," because I really wanted an ice cream. I was thinking like, "Oh, those ice creams look nice." Cool. So we just started laughing and then we just started chatting. And then it really took off. This guy was so deep and so profound, but so casual about it. It was literally, we were in a cafe chatting, but it was not even just what he said, but just the energy and the presence of this man. It opened my mind and it made me experience things outside of the normal or the usual, like when I was in that cave, but just in conversation. And I'd never had that, just speaking to somebody, no meditation, no nothing. I was just talking to somebody and my life was opening up before my eyes. So I felt very deeply connected to this person, and his name is Satyakam, and I refer to him as Satyaji out of respect. And I felt so deeply connected and so familiar as well. Like it felt like we were just laughing and joking and talking as friends. And he's amazing because he'd speak to you about like the universe and life in such a profound and poetic way, but then just crack jokes in the middle of it, like just the most random stuff. And I love that kind of contradiction because I kind of saw that in myself as well. And I saw a lot of myself in him, and he also felt like there was a deep familiarity. And so over the next 2 weeks I was there, I would see him every day. I would go for like walks with him, and I even organized a trip for us to go deep into the mountains together with my friend. And yeah, it became very clear at that point that I really wanted to work with him, and I wanted to, because he had so much to share. His way of speaking about life integrated so many things, like not just traditional like meditation or Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism, a lot of these traditions, but also art and creativity and music and singing and martial arts. It was like a 360 degrees, just like wisdom about life and action and doing things. And I just felt like this has the potential to touch so many people, because I feel people really need this kind of awareness of who they are, not as a psychological phenomenon, not as the thoughts in their mind, but as a live energy phenomenon, and really be connected to that. That's like, I feel the only real hope we have as a species is to evolve into that simplicity of connecting with that life current. But the juice, that joy that was referring to.
I remember that the first time you told me about him, I think you mentioned him and you said that he does stone carving, but he does it in a particular way. So
Yeah.
this is my first memory that I have of you talking about him. I was like, that's really interesting. What was that again?
So he would take stones from near the Ganges River, Ganga. And so that's a very sacred river in India. And it has a real energy to it. Like if you take a bath in that river, you really feel something has been cleaned off you, at least in my experience, and also the experience of many. But he would take stones from there, these beautiful, kind of naturally polished white stones, and carve them with a chisel. And he would carve a mantra into the stone. So a mantra is a sound that you make repeatedly. It's really a technology to connect to this live juice and move away from, excuse me. It's a technology to move away from the thought world into the real world of like live experience. You keep chanting a sound and you pay attention to that sound and you merge with that sound. You do it so totally when you chant that you like become that sound. And then you feel the vibration, and that vibration is now. Thoughts are past and future stories, but that vibration is now. So mantras are a really powerful way of recentering yourself. And he would carve a mantra into the stone while chanting the mantra. So either silently in his head or doing it. So he would access a very deep place of consciousness within himself while carving. And it actually became that even the carving itself was the mantra. It was a repeated action. You just, any repeated action in the present, you can think of it as a mantra, you know. So you're chiseling and carving it, and you're doing it with so much intensity and presence that rock, I saw one of the ones that he had finished, and it was like vibrating, like not vibrating physically, but it was giving off this kind of energy that, again, this energy, you start to experience it as real as like color when you start to see it. But it's just like our lenses are not clean enough usually to see at that level of subtlety. But yeah, it was vibrating with this energy. And he has this vision of creating art like this, where it's not just aesthetically gorgeous, but also it has been done by like meditators. It has been done in a particularly consecrated way, so that object, it carries that energy. So if you put it, for example, in a meditation room, it supports you to go into these deeper states within yourself, which is like what the cave does. That cave is where Ramana Maharshi, the sage, meditated for 6 years, and he left an energy signature in that cave. Like it has his vibe is in there. And so when you go there, it's like you can hitch a ride on that vibe to see the world a bit like how he saw it and how he felt it. So that's kind of the science of it.
It's very mind-blowing that a cave, it's a concave stone. That just blew my mind.
What, the cave? What blew your mind?
The fact that the cave is a concave stone. It's a hollow stone.
Yeah. It's so, like it's the reverse of a stone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like making it vibrate from the inside.
Yeah.
While Satyaji, what he does.
Doing it from the outside.
From the outside.
That's very true, man, actually, yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge hollow stone.
Yeah. Stone, I think there's something about the material of stone that it can retain vibrations of this kind for a long time. And that's basically the science of all Indian temples, especially the older ones like in the south. In the northern ones, they use like different materials, and I feel it's less powerful. But I think that's because they were invaded a lot and a lot of temples were destroyed. But in the south, a lot of the ancient temples are preserved. And there, man, my God, like once you become attuned to it, you just walk in. It's nothing to do with the concepts or the beliefs or anything like that. Or there's no ceremony or process. Like you're free to roam around wherever in an Indian temple. It's not like you have to sit and there's a sort of process that goes on, like in a church, for example. And there's just energy, man. Like you just feel in all of these things. There's ways that we can charge up objects, like stones especially. Mm-hmm. Anyway, this is a tangent. So yeah, I met this guy, Satyaji, and his approach was so modern and fresh and relatable, and the tools that he had seemed so accessible to people, because there's no sitting down meditating with your eyes closed. It's all action-based stuff like art meditations, sound-based meditations, moving, dancing, shaking, but done with such a sophistication and awareness of him as a teacher. It really illuminates the fundamental mechanics of life to you. So I was like, yeah, man, this is it. Like, I know now what I'm going to do, because this whole time I was going through in my mind, like a lot of mind fucks about like, what am I going to do when I go back? Like, should I go into like this therapy and coaching thing? Should I go back to the energy sector? Like all these kind of questions. And when I just kind of gave up, it's funny, is when I gave up on the dream of sort of impacting people spiritually, this opportunity came, which is kind of, I think, is on purpose, because otherwise you're doing it out of a place of ego. Again, another tangent, but yeah. So I went back home after that, after those 2-3 weeks, and I was like to my parents, hey, yeah, guys, I know what I'm going to do. They're like, oh, that's great. I was like,
So
yeah.
I just stop you
Yeah.
a second. So just for people that are listening, if they want a snippet of your experience with Satya G, you uploaded on the YouTube channel your first video.
Yeah.
It was one of your conversations with him from that time, right?
From that time,
if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
So, and it says a lot that video that you got from that time with him, it's actually very popular on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it just struck a chord with people.
Yeah.
And just the way he talks, and he's so passionate and everything. So probably I will just share it in the description. But
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I would definitely suggest people to
Yeah.
have a look, just to give like a context to what's happening, because it can also sound like stuff that's,
Definitely.
But anyway, you went back home. Sorry for interrupting.
Oh, no worries. No worries. Yeah, that video has, I think, like 500,000 views now, which is pretty crazy. But
Yeah.
I'll say the story of that later. Yeah, so I met this man, Satyakam, and I was so inspired and excited to work with him. And I just felt, again, in my gut, but in my whole body, just like super like, yeah, we got to do this, make this work. And then I went back home to Italy to see my parents, because they were getting a bit worked up that I was spending a lot of time in India, not working, not earning money. Is my son going to become like a monk or something? Like, actually, I think a lot of Indian parents have that fear when their children get interested in spirituality. But yeah, so I came back, and then I told them, I know what I'm gonna do, and they're like, oh, that's great. And I was like, yeah, I'm moving to Rishikesh. I'm going to work with this man that I met, and we're going to like do workshops and do stuff and like just see where it goes. And they're like, what the fuck? Are you crazy? Which I don't blame them, because from a security perspective, which is mainly what parents are concerned about, it's a very insecure thing to do. Like,
and also they didn't have the experience that you had. Like you went
Yeah.
there, you felt those things.
yeah. Man, this is such a hard thing about being human, is when you really feel something especially intuitive and something real that you feel is very precious, it's very precious, but then the outside world, the other people in your life, they don't see it, and then they just trample all over it, and they doubt it, and they don't try, like,
Mhm.
I don't blame them necessarily, because they don't feel the same thing. Especially, I don't think many people actively try to like destroy that kind of fertile creative energy, but I think it happens a lot, and that's very sad. But yeah, I went back home and I faced like a lot of resistance, and this was now here I'm like going to India and doing these things. This is where, before, when I made that first leap of quitting my job, it was not so much resistance. Now it's like the resistance was really mounting. Like, my parents were getting very worked up, and
Probably
again,
in the beginning they just thought, oh, this is a phase.
yeah, this is a phase. And yeah.
He will come back. He will.
My reply to them now is like, of course it's a phase. Everything is a phase in life. Like, nothing is forever. But just because it's a phase doesn't mean that it's not valid. Like, But yeah, there were a lot of heated arguments and fights and these kind of things. And I'm a very sensitive person, and I do care what my parents think about me. And I think, like most people, I would like my parents to be happy and proud of me. But I was faced with this very difficult decision of like, I had to hold my ground. This is something that I not even believe in. It's something that I would say believe in, but it's also something that I feel, which is more real than what I believe in. But I have nothing to prove it. I have nothing that I can use as an argument other than I just want to do this. And it was basically my will against theirs. So that was a really kind of tough period for me psychologically, but I think it made me a lot stronger as a person. And then, yeah, I was there, and I decided not to go back actually, to India straight away. I think they had kind of sort of talked me out of it in a way. But also I think I just wanted to see what was going on in Italy, in London, go back, see my friends, and kind of feel it out for myself. And when I felt it out, I saw that the same kind of conscious wave that of like awakening that I saw very prominently in India, it was also happening in London in its own way with certain people. So I felt like, oh, something's going on here as well. And I think a mixture of all of that. And honestly, I can't unpack fully the reasons of why I stayed there. I think even though I might not want to admit it to myself, probably I was influenced a lot by my parents. But in the end, life wasn't gonna let me go. So for a few months, I was like, trying to start a company with a friend and doing various things and trying to start my own company, doing like workshops and stuff. And I'd kind of the whole project with Satyaji just kind of became a bit in the background because so many other things were just like in my face, and it became more and more of like a distant dream, and I kept putting it off and procrastinating it. And then at one point, like I spoke to him. I would speak to him every once in a while, and then I just felt like, man, I told this guy I'm gonna do this. We're gonna do something like this, and I don't want to be like a person that just kind of goes and just like takes advantage or just like doesn't stick to their word or anything. So I do want to do at least something. Maybe I'm not gonna go there and live there and like do all this stuff, but something I'm gonna actually take action, not just mind fuck about it. Like one day I'll do something with it. So I say that, but actually we did do like one or two workshops with friends and stuff. I think you were part of maybe one of the early workshops.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, just to kind of test it out and see. But yeah, basically, a friend of mine just gave me like just do the most simple thing. What's the most simple thing you could do? I said, I guess I could just make a WhatsApp group and just add people to it, and he can post on it and just share his energy, his thoughts, and just that's it. And he was like, yeah, just do that. Don't think about all the things and the workshops and everything and the whole movement or whatever. Just do this. Just do it. And I was like, yeah, you're right, man. I'm just getting in my head again. So I did exactly that. I just made a WhatsApp group. I added some of my friends to it. You were there. And he added some of his friends to it as well. And I think we maybe had, I don't know, somewhere 30 to 50 people, or I was hoping to get that many. I don't remember how many it was. But I thought, let me invite some more people, and I want to give them like a taste of this man so that they can understand if they resonate or not, whether they want to join the channel or not. Because I don't know, I feel like a lot of WhatsApp groups just end up like, you just join it and then you just like never look at it, you just archive it or something. That's what I do at least.
That's probably 90% of the WhatsApp chat groups.
Yeah. So yeah, there was a conversation that I had recorded that we had in the Himalayas together. And so I cut that down into like a little 5-minute video and just put it on YouTube so I could copy paste the links and send it to my friends. And they could join the group if they wanted. But then what happened was so unexpected. I remember waking up one morning, like a couple of days after, and there was like a message on my phone. I can't remember even who it was, but they were telling me like, man, the video's got like a lot of views. I was like, what? I look at YouTube and it was like 20 or 30,000 views in 1 or 2 days. I was like, what? That's crazy. That's awesome. Great. And then I thought, you know what? People are seeing this video. Let me try and do something. Maybe I can. I'll put the WhatsApp, the link, that there's an invite link. You can make an invite link to join a WhatsApp group. So let me just put it in the description. And am I remembering this correctly? I think maybe I put the link in the description when I first put up the video, actually. I don't trust my memory on this, but it doesn't matter. Then, basically, man, over the next week or 2 weeks, the video got 200,000 views, and the WhatsApp group filled up. Like, it reached 1,025 people, which is the limit of number of people you can have in a WhatsApp group. So people kept trying to join, and they couldn't join. So we got a lot of comments, WhatsApp group not working, not working. So I made a waiting list, and then like 700 people joined that waiting list. I was like, what is going on? And I honestly, I didn't even have time to really think about it much. I was just trying to trying to handle this huge influx of people that are asking questions and doing things. And then, obviously you get people from the internet and just a lot of garbage and like a lot of rudeness and whatever. So kind of trying to figure out a way to keep it a clean space, where the wisdom that was being shared can be heard and absorbed by people. Not that there's just like an open forum on the internet where everybody can just dump their garbage. So yeah, we moved then to Telegram, which is where that channel is now still today. And yeah, since then, it's just been posting. We've been doing talks and workshops with our community on Telegram, and it's been growing and deepening. And yeah, that's my main focus now, this work. The YouTube channel now has like 25,000 subscribers. And yeah, posting like a video every week. And yeah, on Telegram, just sharing the energy, sharing the wisdom, and just going with the flow of this now. So yeah, here we are, I think like more than an hour later. That's my introduction. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot when you just follow. I don't even know what is it. You just follow the hints that you get in life. It's not you have a predetermined, I'm going to do this and that, or like you're just limited by a structure. Life can get pretty out of hand and magical. Like you already used that word.
Yeah.
It's I don't know what's happening, but it's great. So
yeah,
let's keep going and let's see where it leads you. Yeah.
absolutely.
Again, and in the story that you were telling me, that feels like it was your attitude at many points. Your attitude was, this is not part of my previous experience. I don't know where it's going to lead me, but let's see where it goes. How you decided to leave your job, how you decided to go to India, how you decided to visit the ashram and the cave, and also just when you were telling the story in the hotel, you just saw this person and you thought that person is interesting. Let's go say hello, because probably that day or that week that Satya was at the hotel, probably thousands of people, or like at least hundreds of people walked by and nobody went there to ask, to offer him an ice cream.
Yeah.
So I guess that your surrender experiment, it's very successful so far.
It's getting better. It's getting better.
Yeah, for sure.
I think children, they see life as magical. And we as adults have this terrible habit or feeling that we need to educate them out of their naive and magical way of seeing the world into what is quote unquote the real world. What we're actually doing without realizing is that we're taking them away from the magic of reality and shoving them into our garbage, dark, graveyard prison thought worlds of expectations and futures and pasts and shoulds and shouldn'ts and all of this societal thought structure. And like I said, thoughts are very useful and the mind is very useful. And, I'm not saying that we should be as vulnerable as children on a practical level, but that open-heartedness and that willingness to say, I actually don't know, that is missing from so many people. People just like walking around. Like the dullness of a person is exactly proportionate to how much they feel they know what's going on. And people strive always to like be like, oh, I know what's going on. I can give answers to this or whatever it is. But that state of I don't know,
it's very powerful.
It's so powerful. And forget powerful. It's just so freeing and so
Yes.
alive. Like when you get more used to that and you kind of lean into it more, and that becomes more your home of saying, I don't know, you'd never want to go back to I know. Because like I know is, maybe harsh words, is for the cowards. It's like, and I say that because I have a coward inside me as well. Everybody does. It's not like we all have to watch out for that part of us. but it's just feeling like you know everything.
Mhm.
Is that you want to prove to other people some sort of strength, or some sort of, you're trying to get their respect, or you're trying to prove to yourself that things are under your control, when they're really not. Like, very little is in our control. And the unwillingness to see that is where the magic dies. Because to feel the magic, you have to be willing to feel the fear and the vulnerability of actually being in this moment. Because it's scary. Like, there's nothing scarier, because it's constantly out of your control. And that's the surrender. It's when you're in the face of that, oh my God, like, what's going to happen? I don't know. And you just relax. Just relax into it.
That's been my process, I would say, or the thing that I'm trying to achieve as well in this last 2 years when I started consciously my spiritual transformation. Because before it was unconscious. Maybe I was trying to be a better person. I was trying to, with personal development and reading books and stuff like that. But then when you become more conscious about it, like you said, you just try to be more at ease with knowing that you don't know, with knowing that you don't know what's coming next. And it's not just that, it's also, in the beginning it's scary, but then it gets exciting because, like, hey, I actually don't know what's going to happen next. Maybe it's wonderful, maybe it's not. But let's see, it's something new. And it's very similar in my life. And if it was me of, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago or 6 years ago, I would have never started this podcast, because automatically, as soon as I would have thought about it, I would have dismissed it, saying, no, it's not going to go anywhere. Nobody's going to listen to it. It's not like now. I know that somebody's going to listen to it. But that's the thing. It's just like, oh, let's do it and see what happens, you know? And it's, I don't know. It could be great. It could be horrible. I don't know. Let's find it out. And there is a huge freedom that comes with that, like you said, because you stop to try to have control. And it's not everything about you, you know? It's not that every outcome has to be decided by you and has to be directed by you. So it's just, you feel more at ease. Like, let's see what happens. I will do my best, of course, to direction my life in this way or that way, because I have some aims, I want to achieve some stuff. But for sure more relaxed, or at least trying. And becoming conscious of that helps a lot. And slowly but surely trying to improve. And also I would say just following the practices that are taught in the Indian tradition. And the different things that you can learn from that tradition, like we were talking, we talked a lot in this podcast, can give you a fertile ground to try to reach that place. And
what's your experience been of getting introduced to these kind of practices, and how was your journey going into that?
I would pretty much repeat what you said, but in a different way. Because I spent my whole life being very rational or scientific based. I'm doing quotation marks, by the way. And just thinking that you know everything. And it's also just the state of society, We think that we're very advanced and we know everything.
Yeah, we're so backwards, actually.
And that we uncovered all the secrets in the universe. And I have to say, it's pretty impressive what society did so far, what we did so far, the point that we got to, because it's kind of impressive that we managed to go to space. With some telescopes, we can see very, very far in the universe, and we have so many tools to study the universe, and also with medicine we are able to cure so many diseases. We did a lot. It's very, very impressive, but at the same time that gives you a certain arrogance. You just think, oh yeah, I know everything. And that's the same arrogance that I had, and I probably still have, that I just thought that I knew everything. But then when you start questioning yourself, like, do I know actually what I'm doing? What is it that I want to do? Again, going back to when you sit with yourself and you just try to dig deep and see what is it that you actually want to do. And so I guess that I went through a surrender experiment, kinda, myself, without realizing it. And that surrender experiment brought me to try some of the yoga practices taught by Isha, and just trying different stuff in life. And coming from that logical mind, I got to experience this thing that is not logical. I cannot fit it in any logic, but I'm still experiencing it. It exists because I am experiencing it. Okay. My mind is saying, oh, I have no data about this, but I am experiencing it. So
shut up. Yeah.
And yeah, it's just been a slide since then. Just keep going through this path of trying to experience as much as possible with an open mind, and most of the time realize that you are wrong, or like you don't know what's best, and try through your experience just to grow and improve and get into a better state. And yeah, it's very complicated. It's hard to explain, and it's hard to like give a method, like, you know, do step A and B and C and D and you will get there. But yeah, that's, I guess, why we're just conversating and sharing our experiences.
Yeah. I hope, you know, people listening to this with an open mind are inspired to explore this a little bit more. It's difficult for us to explain as sort of, let's say, adolescents on this path, because this stuff is very hard to talk about in the first place, because it is beyond thoughts and the mind. But there are some resources that I would like to point people to in the show notes that I think would really, really help them, from people who are much more established into this way of being. But yeah, I'd just like to touch on what you were saying when you were talking about society, and that we've done some impressive things so far, and that's led to a kind of arrogance that we think that we know. It's such a important point what you said. But I'm curious, I want to dig deeper into what we mean by impressive. Because I think a lot of the accomplishments that we are making, especially these days, where a lot of money is going into like making technological advancements that nobody's asking for, like the metaverse, or like the next iPhone, or you know, even a lot of the ways, even in the past 100 years, how agriculture has been industrialized, how pharmaceutical industry has emerged. Like so many of the so-called great accomplishments that we have, I feel like in the beginning they did make a very kind of, let's say, healthy difference, but it became something very ugly. And I don't think it's impressive what we're doing. I don't feel that it's impressive at all, because for me, intention counts more than achievement. But the problem is, for the world, achievement counts more than intention. And that's exactly the problem. That's why it's impressive to the modern mind that, oh, big things we can do and all these advanced things and whatever it is. But it's completely based on this very toxic, exploitative way of dealing with people and with life. Even all the impressive things that we've done, like human dignity, has had to suffer a lot and continues to suffer every day. Like, what's the cost of doing this? You know, And the intention behind it is to just do something impressive to feel bigger and better about ourselves. It's not like some evil overlord that is responsible for this massive human suffering and exploitation. It's in each and every one of us, the greed that is there. And the greed that then fuels the mind that is willing to exploit energy, exploit nature, exploit humanity, just exploit life to fulfill its own self-gratifying fantasies. This ego is the real thing on a mass scale it's operating, but it's inside each individual. One has to divest or disinvest from the ego, because it's not just something that it's not something that just exists on its own. It's we keep feeding it because we keep falling for it. We keep buying into the small little kicks that it gives us. It's an addiction. And it's the most profound addiction that everybody has, but almost nobody knows that they have. So this is the thing, we're running around, even most efforts I feel of people who are trying to change the world for a better place, into a better place, they're not really going anywhere because they're not actually addressing the root of the issue, which is inside each of our own subjective consciousnesses. Like, until that changes, there's no hope for better systems to come along. That has to change within a sufficient number of people that then the culture becomes naturally conscious and it gains its own momentum. It already has its own momentum and it's growing faster than ever before in human history, this kind of conscious awakening. But it needs to reach a critical mass. Otherwise, humanity is not going to survive. It's very simple. We're going to destroy ourselves. Because people see it as like, oh, it's me and there's a bunch of other people in this society and like it's all that. But when you start to go deep into yourself and you see how much life, external life, is a mirror to internal life, this again kind of defies the kind of the logical structures that we usually hold on to in society. But it's not that let me become more peaceful, at peace with myself, then I'll be able to do things that help society more. That's a common way people phrase it. No. You, by changing yourself, you are changing the society in that itself. Because one, you're a part of society. And two, the most influential thing that people can do to make other people more conscious is to be conscious themselves. And it naturally, it's like a vibrational thing of like attunement that happens below the psychological level. It's like, in a kind of Western scientific language, we have mirror neurons in our nervous systems that allow us to mimic and naturally help us mimic the people around us. That's built into us as organisms. So when people become more conscious and they are behaving and their nervous systems are firing in a different way, naturally that translates from organism to organism. This is my explanation of it, at least.
I agree with you. Definitely, there are all these issues that you talked about. But I have to say that lately I'm trying to shift to just to see the half full glass, because what you said, it's all true, but at the same time, it gives us a platform where we can improve, So first of all, like, there is this consciousness movement happening, and that's already really, really hopeful, hope-inducing in itself. That's great. I would have never thought that all these people would be talking about it and all these people would be putting effort in it. And it's just at the starting phase, I think. And like you said, it's a momentum, so it will grow. It will go faster and faster. Hopefully we have a time constraint, so probably we should go faster. But it's happening. That's already something,
Yeah.
And also, society with all of its problems, it still gives like I was saying, a platform for something to grow out of it. So for example, now we're sitting in a podcast studio that I was just able to rent, and we have these instruments that we can use to share ideas and maybe to inspire other people to go down that consciousness path. So there is some some hope, and not just some. There is hope.
Yeah.
and I would say that's probably happened in our lives as well, because if we're not in a comfy enough position where our food was taken care of, we had a roof over our head, we had the privilege of deciding to choose what path we would like, because if you are in a country where the war is happening, you cannot decide, I want to be spiritual or not, or what's my true self. Maybe someone that's very, very, very powerful can manage to do that, but that's pretty much impossible. And also, if you're hungry, you cannot think about realization, or I will do what I like to do, or what would my true self would like to do. So we kind of have that privilege. We still had to work for it, and we're still working on it. But it's something, it's not nothing. And yeah, I'm just trying to have a positive outlook on it, because I see what you're saying. It's definitely true, and I think about it many times. But
Yeah. I guess it's just, I don't mean to discourage
I'm sure
anybody.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I feel very encouraged also. Like what you're saying is true, that there is a natural momentum to these things, and in the end we are kind of in the hands of something greater. But at the same time, I guess it's important to point out the darkness and the negative that is there, because otherwise people don't feel the urgency of waking up. Waking up is not like a on and off switch, although it actually kind of is an on and off switch. But it's, let's say, the step that it, like what it means is different for different people at different stages. But there is like a shift that happens, like when you realize it's something important and your intention goes towards that. And for me, at least, I feel like what really pushed growth in my life was suffering. And like periods where I had like these kind of awakenings or realizations or shifts in my life, I was going through some kind of turmoil inside.
Me as well. If I didn't like my job, if I liked my job,
Yeah.
I would still be there. Or if I was fine enough with having a job that was not something that was fulfilling, I would still be there. So yeah, I definitely get you. So would you like to share any, you were talking about the Telegram group, you were talking about other platforms. Would you like to share anything with people that would like to delve deeper into the things you were talking about?
Yes. So on YouTube, the channel is called Satya Speaks. So Satya Speaks. And there's a lot of great videos on there of Satyaji speaking on various topics, from like self-empowerment to relationships and society as well. Some of the things that we were talking about. His perspective is very, very fascinating. And there's also the Telegram, which we're calling an online ashram. So it's basically, we're trying to create this online space, like a container of energy that people can come to during their daily lives, as almost like a sanctuary from their daily lives, to take some time to contemplate their lives more. And it's not just contemplation, we also have a lot of exercises and practices available for people, and workshops and all these kind of things. But I would start with a YouTube channel, and then the website has everything. And yeah, if you feel called to check it out, check it out. And it's definitely been very transformative for me and thousands of other people who have kind of jumped on the train, I would say, since then. It's not just about the concepts that he shares. It's really the energy that he puts into what he says. He really shares himself.
I would say he's a very passionate person.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I agree with you.
It's interesting. It's like through him I see the real potential. I begin to see the real potential and power that we each have, because there's a lot of eloquent speakers out there, but he's much more than an eloquent speaker. He's somebody who's very passionate, but he's not passionate for himself. Most people, when they think my passion, it's like some kind of desire that they have for some pleasure or some achievement, or it's ultimately for themselves, their own self-image, that they get passionate about a dream or something. He doesn't have dreams. He doesn't have any intention. Like he never wanted this project to happen. He never had any intentions for this thing to happen. It just kind of happened, and he's just day by day, he's playing with life and responding. He's in surrender. And it's really, I think that's what really touches people deeply when they hear him speak. Even if you don't understand the words that he's saying, it's like a being that is making a sound to you. And that sound carries that emotion, that sensation of what he's experiencing. And that triggers something in you and helps you to open up that space within yourself. So I would really encourage people to listen to it with an open mind, an open heart, and paying attention to it. It's not just like another vlog or a video or something. It's not just somebody who's rambling like I am, or somebody who, you know, is speaking, but in the intention is like still to like for themselves, like to say something impressive or to kind of get rid of some discomfort inside, which is honestly 99% of why people say stuff. Is somebody who does not need to speak, but is sharing something not for himself but for you, and that's really powerful. Like you feel the difference. And yeah, if you do check it out, I hope you enjoy it.
Beautiful. I couldn't have said it any better. And yeah, thank you for coming to the podcast and having this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.